Hey guys, and welcome back to the Matthew 514 podcast. So I am so excited to be back. I know that it's been a long time yet again, and I feel like I'd had like new vision for the podcast. It was like running after that, and then I just kind of like fell down with it, but I feel really called to get back into the podcast this new year, even if it's not consistent at all, and even if I were literally just to upload like two or three podcasts. Like I just want to do, something and not just nothing, and something is better than nothing. So we're gonna roll with this and we're gonna see what happens. I have like no guarantees. Like my goal would be to have like a podcast up every single month, like just one. But I feel like, I have not kept up with that in the past. So I'm not gonna like set crazy goals on myself since I do have some other ones. But I am excited to be back and in full swing of this as much as I can. But a quick little update. So I am home for the holidays from Ole Miss. Got my hoodie on. My hair is a little bit of a mess right now because I went for a run today. So pardon this. Probably should have, showered already, but I have not. In my bedroom back home, the bed kind of a little bit messy made. Half Christmas decorations up, half aren't up if you're watching the audio. That's what's going on. Went for my long run today, like I said. Stretched, ate a good dinner, been hanging out with my family. Went to church this morning. It's a Sunday. I'm filming this on a Sunday, and hopefully it'll come out on like the Monday or Tuesday afterwards. So whenever you're watching this, it's a Sunday here. Went to church this morning. Really great. And I've just been spending so much time with the Lord, listening to a great podcast on my run, and that is what really inspired me to like bunker down and go ahead and film this today. I had been wanting to film something on the new year, which that's what this podcast is going to be about, the new year. And I just was like kind of reluctant to do it, and then I listened to that podcast today. It was by this girl, and she was talking about like her ins and outs of 24. And I've been loving that trend, but that is not what this is going to be. I'm just going to be reflecting on 2023 and then share my goals for 2024. But it really inspired me. I was like, okay, God, I need to do this. So that is where we are at. But I'm super excited to get back in the flow of things. I hope you guys are having a great day. And that's just like a quick little life update, kind of like what's going on. But anyways, like I said, this is going to be a podcast reflecting on my 2023 and then kind of sharing my goals and just the mindsets that I want to have going into 2024. And I definitely don't want this to like stress you guys out. I know sometimes when I do listen to the 23 reflection or like just new year reflections and stuff like that, I think for me, I can get really stressed feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to do everything that they're doing. And oh, they have that mindset. Why haven't I thought about that? But this is not like, I'm not creating this for you to compare yourself to me. Like I am creating this for you to be inspired. And whether that is to be inspired by, wow, okay, I have my dreams and goals in mind that I want to run after, like let me run after them. Or wait, like I actually do like that thing she's doing. Like I'd like to do that as well, but maybe in my own unique way. So do not feel by any means that you have to do it exactly like I am, because that is not the goal of this. You're your own person with your own identity and calling and purpose in God. And if that's what you take away from the podcast, then that is enough. And I just want this to inspire you. So my prayer is that it does inspire you and it encourages you and it just shines some light into your new year and allows you to run after this year, running after what God has for you. But I want to set like a nice little foundation for this podcast, talking about like where my heart is behind it. And so the first thing I want to talk about is vision. In Proverbs 29:18, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And then in the Message translation, I also really like it. It says, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. But when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. And so with going into this new year, like I love having dreams and I love having visions and I love having goals and plans for things to run after. And I think that that is great. And that is one of my goals also in sharing this, is to share my vision with you and hopefully to give you encouragement with your own vision of how you want this year to go. But I also know that God is ultimately in control. And in Proverbs 16:9, this is the NLT translation, it says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And so we need to have a plan. We need to have vision. We need to have a sense of direction. However, we also need to be surrendered to it changing, because we're ultimately not in control. God is in control, and we can make our plans and they can totally be changed because God's will and way is better. So as we go into this, and mainly that applies to my goals and plans for 2024, but I saw it take place in 2023. We need to make our plans, we need to make our vision, but we also need to stay surrendered to the Lord because at any moment they can change. And remembering that, sure, in the moment it might look really tough and I might be like, dang, like, why did that change? It might even hurt. And it can be hard, but let me tell you, friends, like, it is so worth it when God changes our plans, because sometimes He wrecks our plans so our plans don't wreck us. So as we move forward in that, like, I just wanted to set that stage of having that vision, but also still being surrendered and just trusting that God's way is better. But now that that is set out, let's go ahead and dive into my reflection on 2023. So I feel like 2023 was one of my best years. It was a very like steady year, I feel like. There was a lot of changes though, so I know those words like go against each other, but I guess steady in the sense that there were, I guess, some like parts of my life that were just like consistent. I felt like I was I was growing in my walk with God, but I was just wholeheartedly seeking Him, I feel like, all throughout the year. And I feel like I just got into like a lot of routines this year that stayed pretty consistent. I feel like my friendships have stayed pretty consistent. I feel like in the area of like singleness, I've stayed like consistent in that. But then there's also been like some totally like crazy changes. But I feel like this year there hasn't been like any like crazy monumental thing that's happened, I guess, besides like a bunch of like little things. And I think that's been really sweet, but it's probably been one of my best years yet. And so just like reflecting on like some things that went on this year, I moved away from home for the very first time. And I went to the University of Mississippi and I lived in a dorm for the first time and kind of quote unquote lived by myself because I lived in the dorm room by myself, but I was like surrounded by people. I started attending college in person for the first time because I had just been doing it online. I got into horseback riding, really just like fell in love with the University of Mississippi. And then I came back home and after that semester, and I think that going through that, I did go through one of the most like challenging changes in my life. I wouldn't say it was the biggest, but it was one of the most challenging. And just learning how to like readjust. And then this summer I babysat and I did more school online and I really just learned to just enjoy where I was and like make the most of summer with like boat trips and hiking and, running and just enjoying the people around me. And then I went back to school and I think just that like back and forth of like kind of like big changes, but like they weren't, in my opinion, they were not like anything crazy or humongous. Just like things that are inevitable with life. But going from like moving to college to coming back and then going back to college was like a lot of like back and forth. And so really just learning through that. And then totally living on my own for the first time, which I would love to make a whole podcast about that. But I live like on my own in Oxford and just that's definitely presented a lot of challenges. And I have learned and grown so much of that and just have grown so much closer to God. But going through that and then this past semester was so sweet, really getting to enjoy like game days from the perspective of like being at a SEC school, but more than that, like really like plunging into my like career mindset, I guess, because really taking classes like wholeheartedly for my career, really building relationships and just learning things about life, like how to be an adult and creating habits that aren't just going to aid me while I'm in college, but that are going to aid me for the rest of my life. And then coming home for Christmas break, and just learning to just be in the moment. So that's just kind of been like a little overall reflection of my 2023. But as I went into 2023 last year, I had 4 top prayers in my heart. And these are like my 4 top prayers always. But I really got into praying them this past year. And the first one is that I always want to grow closer to God and I always want to better understand His love for me. Second thing is that I always want to become the best version of myself. I always want to grow. Third thing is I always want to live my life fully and abundantly, just running after what it is that God has for me. And fourth is that I want to be the light. I want to show the world who He is. I want the world to see Him through me. And that's the whole message of this podcast, is to be the light. So those are like my 4 constant prayers always. And as I was taking time to reflect personally, like in prayer on my 2023, I just saw how God met these. And so I'm just going to hit a couple key points on that because I don't want this podcast to be crazy long. But I just want to show you guys God's faithfulness and give you encouragement. So with my first prayer of growing closer to God and just better understanding his love for me, is the biggest area that I saw him meet this prayer was through the challenges that I faced, honestly. And like I said, just going through a lot of back and forth with kind of like still living at home but moving out at the same time. Like college can be so funny about that. And so if you are in college and you haven't been able to like put to words that like feeling of just being like, okay, like I kind of live at home but I also live at college, and like this back and forth, just know you're not alone. Like I'm in it too, and there's so many other people that are in it as well. I'm like in conversations with my friends, like we all feel that way. Like it just can be such a fun time, but it also can be a confusing time, and that's okay. Like those feelings can go hand in hand, and any other feeling that may rise up with that. But as I went through that back and forth, I think that it definitely sparked, and especially living on my own, sparked more anxiety and more depression than I'd ever felt. And I remember in one of my classes in high school, my senior year, it was a life planning class, and we learned that even good changes can cause depression in our life because it is a change. And we are creatures of habit. Like we have to identify that and recognize that in ourselves. And so when our habits are changed and our routines are changed, then that can cause changes in us, and that can literally like actually cause like chemical like imbalances. And I'm not gonna like totally get into that, but I just want to shine light into the fact that like even good changes can cause changes within us that sometimes might produce feelings that aren't always fun. And I really experienced that this year, and I think it's so easy to feel guilty as a Christian to be like, oh my gosh, like why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling depressed? And 100%, like God came and Jesus came to give us joy and to give us peace and to give us abundance. But John 16:33 also tells us that in this world we will have trials and tribulations, just because it is a fallen and broken world. And so while we do have peace and we do have joy from Jesus, we also are going to have struggles. And once again, those two things can coincide. And I think I really learned that this past year. And so as I experienced more depression and more anxiety, it just led me to the feet of God. And through that, I just experienced his love for me so much more, in his presence, and that he is there for me always. Even when I sin, even when I am not on top of my time with him, even when I get distracted with all the wrong things, even when I wander off, even when I got the point all wrong, like he is right there because I am his and he is mine. Because I've accepted him as my Lord and Savior, he now reigns and rules in my heart. And so my whole screen just went white. Hopefully everything is okay with that. But anyways, now that he reigns and rules in my heart, I have a peace and I have a joy in him. And also that means he's never gonna leave me. And so really just learning how to rest in that this past year. And that is gonna kind of coincide with one of my goals going into this new year, because I want to step into that even more. But I just want to encourage you, if you guys are going through any hardships and any difficulties, God is there with you. And you do not need to feel guilty because you are a Christian and feel like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way or that way. Yes, God came to give you peace and joy, but you are still going to experience struggles on this side of heaven. And he is right there to meet you in that, to help you in that, and also to give you a beautiful testimony. I think about Job. I'm reading through that right now. And Job, if you're not familiar with the story of Job, Job experienced crazy loss and crazy heartbreak and just crazy brokenness. Yet he got to see the goodness of God in the midst of it. And so I just want to remind you guys that your brokenness is a testimony in the making. And even if like you don't ever get to share with other people, if it leads you closer to the heart of God, then it's worth it. And so I really learned that this past year, and that is one of the areas in which I grew closer to God. So second thing that, my prayer is becoming the best version of myself. I just love getting to grow, and I definitely one of my prayers with it is I do want it to go deeper than just surface level self-help type of things. I want it to be rooted in, okay, I want to look more and more like Jesus all the days of my life. There's a song that says, Holy Spirit, make me more like Jesus. I'm awful at singing, but that song, y'all, so good. And that is what I want the roots of my desire to become the best version of myself to be founded in. But probably the two biggest areas in which I saw myself grow and I saw God answer that prayer was one, through books. I love to read, and towards the end of the year, I definitely fell off of the wagon a little bit with that. But over the summer, I challenged myself while I was home to read a book every 2 weeks, and I was able to do that by the grace of God. And I just feel like I read so many good books, and I read so many like different books, but I do seek to read like Christian books to like help me to grow closer to God. I don't think there's anything wrong with like other books. Obviously, if they're like simple books, then we shouldn't read those. But that's besides the point. But just getting to read so many awesome books. One of my favorite books this past year was My Jesus by Ann Wilson, and just getting to see God's love in that, and through somebody's like her just sharing her like personal story was amazing. I read this book called Soul Keeping that I just loved, and it just like felt like it took me to like a mountain like in the woods, because I guess I'm like the imagery in it, and I just feel like I just was taken back by how to take care of my soul, and just these things that should be common sense to me, but I was like, wait, like how am I not stepping into that? And then I read Wild at Heart, which there's a sister book to it called I think it's called Captivating, which I had read a while back, or Captivated, but it's by the Eldridges, Brett and Stacy, I think that's their name. No, Brett Eldridge is a country singer. I don't know what their name is, but the book was so good, and is basically like sharing like what a man's heart is created for, and then the Captivated book is sharing what a woman's heart is created for, and just getting to see like God's intention in like our sexuality and things like that. And I'm pretty sure I talked about that in one of the podcasts, but I could be wrong about that. But so good. And so one of my goals this year is to get back into reading books. And so right now I'm reading I can't think of the name of the book. It's by Jenny Allen, the Toxic Thinking or something like that. But it is so good. I am reading it. Sounds like I'm not reading it, but that is the book that I'm reading. And so I really saw God just grow great things in me through books. But I also saw that even when I'm not reading books, He can still grow great things in me. It's not like they're needed, but they do help a lot. So if you're not a big book reader, that's okay. And also, I mean, audiobooks are like right at our fingertips, so that's amazing. And then second thing kind of goes hand in hand with like the struggles that I shared, but through the change I feel like I did get to grow so much, and especially with moving and living on my own, just really learning how to be independent and learning how to be a strong woman of God, and not becoming hard in that, because it can be easy to be like, oh, I have to do everything by myself and like complain about it, but learning how to stay positive and be like, I get to do this, but learning how to grow in it and being content and being satisfied in the Lord, and especially through singleness, like really getting to be satisfied in Him. And so learning how to like stay rooted in Him and growing in that change, because He has purpose in it. So those were the first two. The third thing is with my prayer of living abundantly. I think I used to have, so where I really grew in this and where God answered this prayer is, I think I used to have this mindset that living abundantly always had to be in these like big flashy things. Like it had to be at a concert. It had to be a trip. And those things are great, and we should live abundantly in those things. But God has really been opening up my eyes through this past year, and even, recently since being home, that living abundantly is, yes, it's in the big things, but honestly, it's so much more in the little things, because our life is made up of a lot more little things than it is big things. And so little things like that first sip of coffee in the morning, little things like that hug from your family member, little things like the sun, peeking into your window as you're driving, little things like that, sip of water when you're working out, and like just little things like that. And just learning how to be present in the moment and just taking those things and enjoying those things. And that's another thing, just really stepping into, is just enjoying the moment. I think once again, with the change and the back and forth, is that I have learned so much about just being content with where I am and loving where I am, enjoying where I am. Because the things that are in this season may not be in the next season, and the people that are in this place may not be in the next. And that's one thing that I realized, is that there's people and things that I love in Oxford that aren't in Fredericksburg, and the same is true. And so really learning how to love both of them and delight in both of them, because I think I've fallen into the trap when I'm in maybe low moments and like at Oxford to be like, oh, like I want to be back in Fredericksburg where I have this and that and blah blah blah. But then the same is true when I'm in Fredericksburg and I'm in a lower moment. I'm like, oh well, I want to be back in Oxford where I have X, Y, and Z. And really learning to be like, no, like let me savor where I am, because both seasons and both places are a gift. And the reality is, I'm not planning on staying in Oxford forever, and so that means that season of my life is going to come to an end. And I don't plan on staying in Fredericksburg forever either. And so I want to enjoy both of them while I can. And so really just learning how to delight in the little things, and embracing where I am and finding the joy in it. And then the second thing with living abundantly is really embracing getting outside of my comfort zone. And I feel like I used to be really good about this, and I kind of started to like slack off with it a little bit, but my like prayer with that is saying yes when I'm tempted to say no. Not to sin, not to anything like that, but saying yes to the new workout class, or saying yes to hanging out with the new people, or saying yes to taking myself to that new restaurant by myself, or saying yes to trying that new workout plan or new workout program, or, saying yes to taking the long way home, things like that. Because those are the things that I have found that create like the sweetest memories. And one thing, over the summer that my dad and I did is that we woke up to go watch the sunrise on the boat. And it was hard to wake up early. And I think my comfort zone could have been like, oh, I'm just going to sleep in. But once we were out there in the water, like it was so worth it. Or deciding to do the hard workout or the hard run. Sure, before it's going to be really tough, but once we're in the moment, and then after we do the workout, like we're going to feel so good about it. And so really like pushing myself to get outside my comfort zone, because those lead to some of the sweetest moments in life. So that like closes up my third desire. And then my last one, my prayer is being the light. And I really felt like God started to answer that prayer, or open up my eyes to that so much more like towards the end of the year. And I guess like the two biggest things with that, the first one is, I think once again, I used to kind of fall into the trap of the flashiness of that, when being the light doesn't just mean like, sure, like doing like the podcast is great and seeking to make posts on my social media is great. But it also is just as special to smile at somebody as I'm running past them on a trail, or to intentionally go through the actual checkout where there's going to be a cashier and talking to them, or, giving my waitress a little bit extra on the tip, or just sending my friends a text like, how are you doing? Things like that. And so not despising the little things, just like in life, not despising the little things. And then the second thing is putting myself in environments that hold me accountable to be the light, that like inevitably I'm going to have the opportunity to be the light. And this is going to tie into one of my goals in the upcoming year, but serving on Sundays, or getting plugged into any ministry, if it's a youth ministry, if it's children's ministry, if it's prison ministries, if it's, homeless dinners, if it's going on mission trips, if it's, I don't even like know what else there is out there. If it's having a podcast, if it's deciding to, commit to posting a Bible verse, once a week on social media, whatever it is, like being in something, or like committing yourself to something that's going to hold you accountable. And that's something that I really want to grow in this upcoming year, that God started to show to me probably like this past semester, that I want to be like in those areas, because it's so easy to get focused on me, myself, and I, and everything that's going on in life, and to lose sight of caring for others. And in Philippians, I think it's Philippians 4, it says like, don't take like care for like only an interest in yourself, but like look out for others' interests. Like think of others as greater than yourselves. And so being in environments that are going to hold me accountable to do that. So those are my 4 top prayers always, and how I saw God, answer them through this past year. And this past year was sweet and it was good. And I feel like I was able to accomplish so many of like my God, giving just dreams and goals, and just getting to grow and step into being so much more like of a woman of God. But let me tell y'all, I am so excited for 2024, and I feel like I just have so many more like dreams and vision, and just like a fire and a passion to run after. And so definitely those 4 prayers are still on my heart 100%, but I do kind of have some like new goals that I want to step into, and then like I guess like tangible actions that I want to live out. So now I want to share those with you guys. I'm going to take a quick sip of water, and we're going to dive into them. Oh, also, before I move on, I wanted to share with y'all a Bible verse that God really comforted me with through my moments of hardship. And so if you are going through hardships and difficulties in this season of your life, hopefully this verse can be of comfort to you as well. So it's in Micah 7. It's Micah 7:8, and it says, do not gloat over my enemies, for though I fall, I will rise again. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. And that was just such a comfort to me, especially through my moments of darkness. Just knowing that God is my light and I will have victory in Him. So that is that. So anyways, that was a verse that I wanted to share with you guys. But now we're going to move on into my goals for the new year. Like I said, so excited for 2024. So my biggest thing going into this new year is that I want to steward singleness. If you don't know, I'm single and I love being single, and I feel like this past year I really did get to grow into it so like just so great. But I feel like like never before. I have a desire to just run after it and grow in it. And typically I'm not a person to pick a word for the year just because I feel like I start out really strong with the word and then I kind of like, fall out of it and I don't like, stay on top of it. But this year I really want to try to stick with the word, and that word is urgency. I want to have an urgency in my life, an urgency in singleness, an urgency, in my desire to be the light, an urgency in the God-given dreams and goals, that, God has given me, and just an urgency because I think I really struggle with, I love a dream that God gives me, and when he gives it to me, I get so fired up and I'm like, yes, let's do this. But then I don't always stay on top of it. And I really want to have an urgency in this year to run after those dreams. And if you guys don't know me, I love country music. I absolutely love it. And one of my favorite artists right now has been Cody Johnson because his songs are so sweet and so good. So if you love country music and you don't know Cody Johnson, you need to check him out. And if you don't love country music and you don't know Cody Johnson, you still should check him out. And he also has like a lot of songs where he like talks about God in them. And I love a good country worship song. But in one of the songs, Till You Can't, by him, he says, chase after your dreams because a dream won't chase you back. And I like, oh my gosh, like it just gives me chills because that's so true. And I know that I struggle with that because I think sometimes it's just easy to have the dream and, think about it and dream about it, but then not run after it. And my goal this year is to run after my dreams, to chase after my dreams, to not wait, to take advantage of the season and run with it. And that's one of the things with being single that I love is that I don't have while a relationship is great and I pray for that someday in my life, it can be a distraction. Even if it's a good distraction, it can be a distraction. And Paul talks about that in the Bible, that you have to care for the other person and think about them, versus when you're single, you don't have to worry about that. You get to focus so much more on God. And so I really want to use this season where I don't have as many distractions, where I don't have a full-time job yet, where I'm not married, where I don't have kids. Yes, I'm a college student. That can be a lot for sure. But I don't have some of the stresses I'm going to have later in life. And I really want to run after my goals. So before I keep blabbering on with that, because I feel like I've repeated that, going into this year with that urgency, there's 4 big things that I really want to grow in. And then, I'll share with you guys some of the dreams that I have. So the first thing, which goes hand in hand with my first prayer that I have of growing closer to God, is, like I said, I really got to experience God's love this past year, but I want to experience it even more this upcoming year. And specifically, in the area of resting in his love and letting his love be enough for me. I think sometimes I struggle a lot with feeling like I have to measure up, or, doing things out of feeling guilty or feeling like I haven't done enough, and really just resting in God's love and knowing that he is enough for me. And because of him, I always am enough. And yes, I can desire to grow, and I should grow, and I always should seek to be better, but I also can rest in him right here where I'm at, and really just learning to rest in his love. And this past year, I went to church with one of my friends and her family, and the pastor said something that I loved, and he said, if you truly understood God's love, then you wouldn't worry. Then you wouldn't have sleepless nights. Then you wouldn't go through all of these different things because you'd be so covered by his love, and his love would be enough for you, and you would see that you don't have to worry because his love is so, grand and good. And obviously on this side of heaven, it's going to be impartial. And the word once again tells us that, we only see in part, but one day we will see in whole. But my desire is to see as many parts as God's love as I can on this side of heaven, and to let it fill me up. And another beautiful thing with that is that the more I'm filled up with God's love, then the more I get to go out and share that with others. So that's the first thing that I want to grow in. Second thing that I want to grow in is stepping into more food and exercise freedom. So being a little, honest and a little real here, the society that we live in, the world that we live in, being, having social media at our fingertips, is that it can create a lot of unrealistic standards of body image, and even of how to eat and stuff like that, and just can be really restrictive. And I've definitely fallen into some fearful mindsets myself and some restrictive mindsets myself. And so if you struggle with that too, know that you're not alone. Know that it is a, completely normal struggle, especially in our day and age. Do not beat yourself up over it. Do not feel guilty over it. But definitely seek to take steps to find freedom in it, because life is too short, and this life that God has given us is too sweet of a gift to be just bondaged by those shackles. And so I really want to step forward into more freedom in that area and overcoming those lies, and, unrealistic expectations that I have created for myself, and really just learning how to like get back to freedom again and just finding true confidence in God, because that's something that's always set my soul on fire that I really want to get back to. So that's my second thing that I want to grow in. I definitely think that that's going to require like, a whole podcast to talk about, but just like, dabbing on that a little bit. So that is that. Third thing that I want to grow in is knowing the difference between joy versus happiness. I feel like those are two words that we so easily like just like mesh together, when in reality like they're so different. And I think a lot of people probably have heard this, that happiness is temporary and it's fleeting and it's more like circumstantial, but joy is something through Jesus that we can have no matter the circumstances. And I think I just want to know, like, I guess more so what that looks like. And I believe that by stepping into God's love more, I will definitely step into his joy more, and more light will like be shined into that area of my life. But I guess from like personal experience too, like looking back on things and being able to be like, that was joy versus that was happiness. Or in my life being able to be like, okay, right now I'm feeling joy, right now I'm feeling happiness. And I don't know if that's totally, realistic, but really just knowing the difference between that, and also knowing like, to pray for more joy and not idolizing happiness, and also not idolizing my feelings altogether. But I think sometimes I just interchange those in ways that like I shouldn't, and I kind of miss the point sometimes. So really stepping into the difference between those. And then the fourth and final thing, which I kind of had mentioned, in 2023, but I want to continue to step outside of my comfort zone, because like I said, I feel like I kind of started to slack off in that area and became like a creature of habit. And especially in singleness, is I want to be willing to get outside my comfort zone, to take myself to that restaurant by myself, even though it's a little difficult, to take myself on, to drive someplace, like an hour away, take myself on that little day road trip. Obviously be safe and like be smart in this world, but I do want to get outside my comfort zone and to sign up for the workout class, or to, host a small group at my apartment, to do different things like that. And to not let my comfort zone keep me from the sweet gifts in my life. So those are the four things that I really want to grow in this upcoming year, and hopefully that can spark something in you guys that you want to grow in. So the last thing that I want to hit on is the tangible like actions that I have. I have a lot of fun God-given dreams and goals that I want to run after this year, and that is one of my biggest things going into this new year. Is a lot of the things that I have been dreaming about for like the past couple of years that maybe I've been like, oh, I'll do that later in life. I'll do that later in life. Like I want to do them this year and not put them off, because like the song says, until you can't, like tomorrow may not come. So say your sorries, your I love yous, because man, you never know. And so I want to run after what God has for me, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And my days are numbered by him. And so he knows, but I don't. And I want to steward everything he has given me and steward it well. And so that means I want to run after the dreams that he's given me and not wait. And so, there's some tangible goals that I want to run after that I'm not going to share on here, just because I kind of want them to be between like the Lord and I, and like my close people. And then definitely I'll share them once I complete them. But that is like one of my tangible things, is that I want to accomplish some of those God-given dreams this upcoming year. And I guess one of the biggest things that God has already shown me with that I'm going to hit on really quickly is that it's going to take consistency. And sometimes the God-given dreams, and sometimes the best dreams in life, they're not just I'm going to wake up one day and do it. Like it's going to take a process. It's going to take building, foundations and mindsets and actions and habits and routines and training and things like that. And it's going to require a journey to get there. It's not just going to happen with the snap of a finger. And so really learning how to find beauty in that journey, because once again, we're going to start another song, The Climb by Miley Cyrus. Like, it's not all about, like, what does it say? All about the view, but, like, it's about, like, the journey. It's about, like, the uphill climb. And so learning to find the beauty in that. And so maybe that can encourage you guys a little bit, too. Maybe there's some dreams that you guys have on your heart that maybe you've been a little reluctant to run after, because you know that it's going to require, some time, and it's going to require a journey, and it may be hard. Let me tell you guys, it's going to be worth it. If God has given it to you, then it's going to be worth it. So that's one of my things. A second tangible thing that I really want to step into, and this goes with being the light, is I want to get back into serving on Sundays this upcoming year. I feel like I used to serve on Sundays every Sunday, and I fell out of that. And I want to get back into the flow of that, just because I think that's my way of being like, thank you, Lord. Like, thank you for your goodness, your kindness, and your love. Like, let me give you what is rightfully yours, and let me go and be a blessing to other people, because you have so greatly blessed me. So I want to get back into serving on Sundays. And then the last tangible thing that I'm going to share with you guys that I want to do this upcoming year is I want to read the whole Bible. Like I said, I'm reading Job right now, and I'm on Tara Lee Cobble's Bible recap plan. I started it last year in March, when I went to college, and I did it. This is so funny. I was looking at my because I got the actual book for it. This time I'm doing it on the YouVersion app. But I stopped on the 20, I did the 21st day and then I stopped, which it takes 21 days to create a habit. So I literally created the habit and then I cut the habit off. So I'm not doing that this year. That was so the enemy. I'm not letting that happen this year. I'm creating the habit and then I'm running with the habit. And once again, that kind of shines light into the thing that's going to take a journey. That's going to take a process. That's going to take commitment. I may not always feel like doing it, but once I get to the end of this year and I'm able to be like, yeah, I read the whole Bible. Once again, that's going to help me grow closer to God and better understand His love more. But once I accomplish that, I'm going to have that victory and I'm going to be like, yeah, I got to read the whole Bible. And so that is my goal in this upcoming year. Once again, something I really want to do while I'm still single and before I get to step into being a teacher. Because that's what I'm studying to be, before I get to step into being a wife, before I get to step into being a mom, reading the whole Bible and getting filled up with God's words. So those are the things that I want to grow in this upcoming year. Those are some tangible things that I want to step into. And then I want to leave you guys off with the Be the Light challenge. Like always, my 2 things for you guys. First off, is I want you guys to do your own reflection on this past year and your own goal setting for this upcoming year. And if you already did that, then you already did the challenge. So good for you. But if you haven't done that, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I know for myself, sometimes reflections, I think for me, I think of reflections like a journal entry. And I'm not a big journaler, besides sometimes, but not always. And I think it can be very overwhelming to be like, oh my gosh, this is going to take so much. It's a whole year. But what I did to reflect on the years, I looked at those 4 points that I prayed over, and I just sought to look at one way in which God answered that. And then that led to so many other things. Another thing that you can do is go back through, if you're a big picture person, go back through your camera roll from the past year and look at the different things you got to do. And remember how you felt in those moments or what God was showing you in those moments. If you are a journaler, go back through and read some of your journal entries. Go back there and maybe read notes that you took in your Bible or notes you took at church. Just different things like that. So do your own reflection and goal setting. And once again, you don't have to create a crazy amount of goals. If you create one goal for the year, that's better than no goals. So do your own little reflection and goal setting. Don't make it overwhelming. And then second thing to go forth and encourage other people and be the light with other people is have a conversation with somebody, an intentional conversation with somebody about your own goals, maybe your own reflections and their own goals, and encourage one another. Go and inspire your friend or your family members or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your husband or your wife or your children or a coworker or an employee or whoever it is, a teacher, anybody that you have a relationship with and you may have a voice in their life. Start a conversation, be intentional about it, and encourage them, inspire them. One of the sweetest things that I love getting to see and do is when I'm sharing my dreams with other people and it encourages them in their dreams and it inspires them to run after their dreams so much more, because then inevitably that makes me want to run after mine so much more as well. And so take the time to reflect on your past year and create goals for this upcoming year, and then have a conversation. And it doesn't have to be this crazy formal thing. Just be intentional about it and just be hey, what were your goals this past year? What are your goals this upcoming year? What did you love about, 2023? What are you looking forward to for, 2024? Being okay, because I know that this is going to be coming out a week and a half or so into, 2024, I'd be okay, how are those New Year's goals going? And also, every relationship is different, but seek to inspire somebody in that. So closing little key takeaways. First off, God is in control of this year. You are not. So let that give you some peace and create plans, have a vision, but most importantly, be surrendered to Him. Second thing is God is so faithful. I got to see that in 2023, that even when I'm not faithful, He is faithful. And even when I'm not loyal, He is loyal. And He has such a sweet way of bringing everything to fruition because I'm His and He is mine. And so when you give it to God, you're going to see beauty out of it. And He is so, so, so faithful. And then third thing, run after your dreams. Your dreams are not going to chase you back. So if God has given you a dream, run after it. And if you don't know how to start running after it, ask Him to show you how to start running after it and see how He brings beauty out of it, and realize that it's not just about getting to the mountaintop. It's about the journey. It's about the growth. It's about the people and the places and the things that you get to see and do along the way. And so give this year to God and see how He makes it the best year yet. So I love you guys, and I hope you had an amazing 2023. But if you didn't, 2024 is y'all's year. It is y'all's year. Give it to God. Run after after it and see what he can do. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I hope you start reflecting, dreaming, and running after new goals in 2024. You guys got this. Go forth and be the light.